Well, hello everybody and welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to start on making some apple turnovers. This is actually going to take me a couple of days to do. Today I'm going to be making the puff pastry, or actually an inverted puff pastry. Let that chill overnight, and then tomorrow I will put that together with the apples to make the turnovers. So for the puff pastry, or inverted puff pastry, what we have to do is mix some softened butter, and I have 400 grams of softened butter here, with 175 grams of plain flour. That's going to be our butter base, and then once I've got that and I've chilled it, I have to put that with our dough base, which has 175 grams of plain flour, 175 grams of strong white bread flour, 150 millilitres of cold water, 5 millilitres of vinegar, which is just to stop the dough from discolouring during storage, 15 grams of salt, and 112 grams of melted butter, which is cooling to room temperature. So the first thing to do is to mix this butter and flour, so 175 grams of flour and 400 grams of softened butter. Mix those together. When you've got that well combined, you're going to need to put that on some baking parchment and shape it into a rectangle. Like that, and just scrape it off. I'm going to take another piece of parchment paper and place it over the top. Then I slide that off my tray. I'm going to press that down. I'm going to fold over the edges of my parchment paper. I'm trying to get it as level as I can, so I have the same thickness throughout. And there we have it, just about. Right, now I'm going to put that in the fridge. and that's going to chill completely. Remember, I put it under there. This is just for moving it. And I'll pop that in the fridge. And that will chill completely. And we can get on to the next stage, which is to make the dough part. Put 150 grams of water, a teaspoon of vinegar, our salt, and our melted butter, and then both of our flours, which I'm going to put into one bowl and just give a mix together, I think, because we have different strengths of flour. The plain flour has less gluten than the strong white bread flour. We put that into the bowl as well. We're going to mix that together until it's just combined. Start off slowly. And there we are. That's just combined. And what we're going to do then is to put it into a Ziploc bag. This is the largest one I've got, so that's the one I'm going to use. You could use slightly larger if you have one. Whoops. That's fine. Just pop that into the bag. Close the bag, and then what we're going to do is we're going to just flatten that again into a rectangle. And it doesn't have to be at this stage the same size as our rectangle of butter, but it will become the same size after we've chilled it and we've rolled it out. That will get chilled in the fridge, and then when they've both been chilled and they're firm, we'll be back to do the next step. Okay, so our butter has firmed up, and so has the pastry dough. And so now what I want to do is roll this dough out until it's the same size as our pastry, as our butter. You need to keep the surface well floured. I'll just check that. Well, that's actually not bad. I can just square that off a little bit there. And then we'll take the paper off the butter. And we're going to put some flour on the butter as well. And then what I want to do is I want to put the butter on here. And we'll put our pastry on the top. And I'm going to fit that to the same size as the butter, like that. Okay, I had a glitch with recording. The card seemed to lose its data, so I may have lost part of the data, but basically, just to reiterate, I've taken the butter out of the fridge and the pastry, the dough, and I've rolled the dough out to be the same size as the butter, and now I want to roll it into an oblong that's about 20 inches long. I'm just going to pick that up and put more flour down because I want to keep it well floured. I'm going to flour under here as well. And this inverse dough, puff pastry, is where you have the butter on the outside of the dough, as opposed to the more traditional way of putting the butter inside the dough. So, having rolled that out like that, I'm now going to fold it over going to fold it over 1/3 and then roll the other third up over it like that. Pick up the excess and put it on. And what I'm going to do is wrap that in cling film and chill it for another hour. Then I will be back with you and we'll do a double turn, which is to roll it out again, but this time fold it in 4. Then we're going to chill it again for an hour, do the single turn that we've just done, chill it for an hour, and a double turn, and chill it for another hour. Oh, sorry, then chill it overnight, and then we'll get on with it in the morning. So I'll be back with you to show you the double turn. Okay, so I have our pastry in the fridge chilling, and it's chilled overnight. So we'll go on to the next step, which is to prepare the apples. Now I have here, it's supposed to be a pound or 454 grams of sweet apples. These actually weigh slightly more than that, but I'm not going to worry about that. It'll just make slightly more than we want. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them into quarters. And I'm going to remove the core. In fact, this is probably better with a little knife than a big one. And I'm going to put them into 60 millilitres of cold water in a bowl. And they will brown very quickly, so you need to work quickly. And what we're going to do once we've got them cored, you can either steam them or microwave them until they've gone nice and soft, and you leave the skins on. And into the 60 millilitres of water with the apple, I'm going to pour 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. That's just going to give it some flavour. And at the same time, I'm going to take 350 grams of Granny Smiths, which are a very sharp apple. And I'm going to cut those into little cubes. Or squares, it doesn't matter, cubes or oblongs, it doesn't matter. And then once I've cut them, I'm going to put them into a bowl of cold water that's got some lemon in it. That's to stop them from browning. Again, we're going to leave the skins on. So I've microwaved our apples for 10 minutes. I'm just letting those cool down a bit. Then I'm going to drain them and process them into a puree. At the same time, I have 15 grams of butter in this frying pan. And I've strained our diced apples. And I'm going to gently saute those for 10 minutes, adding 60 grams of sugar. I'm using soft brown sugar, but caster sugar would be fine as well. And we're just going to saute those, get them nice and caramelized. And softened a little bit. These will end up as the chunks in our apple turnover, so that we'll have the puree and we'll stir these chunks into the puree. Now, once I've processed the puree, I'm also going to put that into a saucepan and gently simmer that for 10 minutes as well. The idea behind that is to reduce some of the moisture from that puree so that we don't have too wet a mix. So I'll be back with you when I've completed sauteing these and pureeing the apples, and then I'm leaving them to go cold, and we can get on with rolling the pastry out. Okay, so unfortunately I forgot to turn the microphone on when I rolled out the pastry. So I'll reiterate what I've done. I've mixed my pureed apples in with the diced sautéed apples. That's cooled down. I took the pastry out and cut it in half, and half of it goes in the freezer. It can be used later. The other half I've rolled out to about 14 inches by 14 inches square, and I've used a 5-inch round ring. 4.5 is probably better, but I only had a 5-inch. And so I got 8 rounds out of that. And what I've done is I've already rolled 4 out, and they're in the fridge chilling. And so I'm going to roll the other 4 out so you can see how I actually put them together. Now, while they're chilling in the fridge, you need to preheat the oven to 230 Celsius or 210 Celsius with a fan. That's 450 Fahrenheit. And we're going to cook at that temperature for 5 minutes, and then reduce the heat down to 180 Celsius, 160 Celsius with a fan, or 350 Fahrenheit, and cook for a further 30 minutes. So to roll these out a little bit more, we want to have a thick top there and a thick bottom there. So we'll just place the rolling pin in and roll it from 12 to 6, leaving that thickness at the top. And then, having done that, we will take our apple and make a mound in the centre like that. We'll take some water and brush the water right the way around the edge of the pastry. Like that. And then we're going to fold the pastry over and seal it. Then we'll pick that up and we'll put it onto our baking tray like that. I'll dry that, pour some more flour over, and do the same with the remaining 3. Okay, so I've rolled out and filled the 4. I still have some apple left, but I said I would have some left. So the next thing I'm going to do is to brush each of these with some beaten egg. And I'm going to brush them twice. Right, so then, if you want to, you can score a little pattern with a knife. Maybe something like a leaf. I'm not very good at this sort of thing, but we'll have a go. Right, so there's one final thing to do before we put them in the fridge to cool, and that is to make a hole in the middle of each one. Like that. And that, when they bake, will allow any steam to come out so that the pastry can puff up nicely. So they're going to go in the fridge to firm up, and then when I come back to you, we're going to put them in the oven. As I said, bake them for 5 minutes on the high heat and then 30 minutes on the lower heat. So I'll be back with you when they're ready to go in the oven. Okay, so I have them now, and I'm going to pop them into the oven for 35 minutes. That's 5 minutes at 230 or 210 with a fan in Celsius, or 450 Fahrenheit. Then I'm going to reduce the heat to 180 Celsius. That's 160 Celsius with a fan, and it's 350 Fahrenheit. And then I'll take them out of the oven and let them cool, and I'll be back to show you the results. Okay, so now I'm back with you, and I've baked our turnovers for 35 minutes. 5 minutes at the high temperature that I told you about, and then 30 minutes at the lower temperature. They've risen well, nice and flaky, lovely golden colour. The aroma that you get as they bake, that sweet buttery aroma, is just wonderful. I've already eaten one while it was warm, and I've cut another one open and eaten half of it already. But so that you can see the inside, it's nice and full with the apple, and the base is not soggy at all, thankfully. So I'll just have a chew on this pastry for you so you can see that it's nice and flaky. Wonderful. And the apple is sweet. It only has 60 grams of sugar in the entire recipe, but that apple is so sweet, with a little hint of the tartness of the Granny Smith. So that's it for this recipe. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, please give me the thumbs up below the video, and click on the subscribe button to subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's also an eye in the top right corner of the screen if you hover your cursor over the video, which will allow you to click to link to the recipe, or there's a link below the video that you can click for the recipe. And I urge you to try this. It's long-winded, I have to say, it takes a lot of effort, but it's well worth it. I suppose you could buy puff pastry and cut out a lot of the steps, but I enjoyed the experimenting and trying it for this first time I've ever made them. So I'm happy with the results, and I will be back with you in a few days with another recipe. So until then, happy baking.